Are you ready to get your health back but feel overwhelmed by the endless healthcare options? We believe God has called each of us to a specific assignment, and we want to make sure your body, mind, and heart are up for the task. It's time to simplify the process of healing. At Cornerstone Integrative Healing, we offer simple, effective, easy ways to prioritize your health and gain understanding. No prescription pad needed. I'm Kari, a pharmacist turned integrative health practitioner. I'm so excited to have these conversations around topics with my friend, Jenn.
Hi there, I'm Jenn, and together with our team at Cornerstone Integrative Healing, we offer an alternative to traditional healthcare, combining our expertise and experience in the medical field with our knowledge and faith to break the cycles of guessing what's wrong. We know the road to healing, feeling good again, can be overwhelming. You can expect honest conversations around the ups and downs of healing. The truth is, there are so many layers to healing. Because we've taken the time to learn where true healing comes from, we've learned how to help other women discover a different way of caring for themselves. Join us every week for new episodes as we discuss topics that are personal and pertinent to your healing journey.
Welcome back to the Cornerstone Integrative Healing podcast. It's Kari and Jenn here, and we have another great episode for you today. We hope you've been enjoying just maybe more so a focus on physical things. We love talking about all the ways that our health is influenced and our healing is influenced, but we wanted to specifically focus on the physical for a little bit. So we hope you've enjoyed that. In the last episode, we chatted a little bit about anxiety and specifically blood sugar and some of the more like foundational things that hopefully will help you to fill in the gaps where you might be missing in some of these areas. And so in this episode, we wanted to specifically focus on the gut as it relates to the anxiety that you might be feeling. Maybe it might not be every single day. It might just be here and there, right? We're trying to give you more of a guide to get to the actual root of the issue. And so I'm excited to hear today from Jenn on the anxiety and gut connection, a little bit deeper information on that.
Yeah, this is a big one for anxiety. Most of us in this space, if you're into health and wellness and functional medicine, you've probably heard of the gut-brain connection or gut-brain axis. It's been kind of well, disseminated, and I think we've at least heard the term. So, we wanted to just call to mind that deep connection that if you do have a lot of digestive symptoms, so bloating, alternating diarrhea and constipation, abdominal cramping or pain, belching maybe, that if you have those with anxiety, there is probably a deep link to the gut. And because remember the brain, for those of you that don't know, if you haven't heard of the gut-brain connection, the brain and the gut are constantly communicating via your vagus nerve, which is part of your parasympathetics, your rest and digest. It's right behind your ear. So that little space behind your ear is your vagus nerve, and as well as the microbiome. There's actually a new field of study called psychobiotics that are really studying how the microbiome play into brain health. So, the brain and the gut are deeply connected. And so we just really wanted to spend just an episode specifically on this because it's so important. So if there's inflammation in the brain, you've had a post-concussion, you've had a brain injury of some sort, a fall, TBI, then your gut is on fire as well. When the brain's on fire, the gut's on fire because they're both communicating. Today we're going to talk about just a little bit about the opposite direction. So when the gut's on fire, the brain's on fire too. So increased inflammation in the gut usually can come from a couple ways. One is compromised gut lining. So we have a couple layers in the gut that we've talked about. So you have your microbiome layer, and then there's this nice mucogen or mucus layer, and then you have that single layer of epithelial cells, which is your gut lining. Specifically, when they talk about those specific cells, this is how the nutrients get in, the digested nutrients get into the bloodstream. So what happens is when there's leaky gut, especially when the gut is overridden by pathogenic or opportunistic bacteria, and there's a lot of inflammation, what happens is the leaky gut, so those single-layer epithelial cells spread apart, and so what you have leaking is undigested food, and also something called lipopolysaccharides, which are extremely inflammatory, and they immediately tell the immune system to be on alert. So this is what creates the problem, right? Um, and there's lots of things really to, cause that gut to be irritated. We've talked about food sensitivities before, so inflammatory foods, seed oils, vegetable oils, artificial sweeteners, food stabilizers like gums and carabins, pesticides like Roundup. These all play a major, major role in your gut dysfunction. So, can you get rid of them 100%? No. I mean, we eat out. You're going to be exposed to pesticides. You're going to be exposed to your food sensitivities, but we just want to mitigate them as much as possible. Also,
Medications can also cause leaky gut,
yep. You want to talk
for
about
sure.
that?
Yeah, it's just I think sometimes even OTC medications
Over the counter.
taken yeah, over-the-counter medications taken long term when they're not really supposed to, or same thing with prescription medications. It can deplete nutrients, and it just has that effect on your body, right? It just kind of it's not healing in a way because they're synthetic. So, I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, especially things like ibuprofen, they really do compromise
Yeah.
the gut lining, birth control, and then probably the worst case scenario would be what's called a PPI or proton pump inhibitor, and these
Yeah.
are your acid reflux meds, whether they're over the counter or prescription, because they decrease the acidity in your stomach. Remember, your stomach is supposed to be an acid producing machine. The pH should be 1.5 to 2, and those proton pump inhibitors bring that acidity in the stomach up to 5 or 6, and your proteolytic enzymes do not work at that pH.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
so if you're on birth control, chronic pain meds, chronic use of NSAIDs. I know in the beginning I had really painful periods and I would take 800 milligrams on an empty stomach all the time, not even
Mhm.
thinking about it, right? Um,
Don't do it.
yeah. Right. For those of you that want an alternative, I love Nervagesic from MediHerb. I think it works great as a pain, alternative. So just FYI. So back to the gut. Anyway, so increased inflammation in the gut lining, specifically. So there's pathogenic or opportunistic bacteria, right? There's an overload in that microbiome. And also remember those pain meds alter the microbiome too. And then reoccurrent, of course, antibiotic use has been linked in studies to anxiety and depression. So, because antibiotics kill the pathogenic and the good bacteria, of course, um, there's a problem when you're taking the recurrent antibiotics and the body doesn't have a time to rebound. So, the Bacteroides, bacteria specifically, are involved in GABA production. So, GABA, neurotransmitter, is our rest and relax hormone. It helps us feel
Who
less
doesn't need more of that?
right. I love that.
Please, yes,
Because
please.
thinking about GABA, you're like, "Ah."
I
Uh,
know.
n so GABA is a major neurotransmitter that can be lacking, especially for people with, autoimmune and Lyme too, because, the especially with Lyme, the high ammonia, production can alter, these microbiome and then decrease your GABA. So, there is such a thing called GABA or antibiotic-induced destruction of GABA-producing bacteria, and that does play a major role in anxiety, especially if you've had multiple rounds of antibiotics. So can you take, exogenous or outside GABA? Absolutely, and we do that with certain anxiety patients. We will give them GABA, supplementally, until we can get their, anxiety under control and, get the gut together and that sort of thing. So when obviously you've had the recurrent, antibiotics, we suggest a reintroduction of beneficial bacteria, especially with the Bacteroides bacteria, the lactobacillus specifically. through diet, obviously, and through a probiotic supplement because they do have an anti-anxiety effect. And I
Yeah.
just want to talk about this study. While it might be a little bit gross, it really demonstrates kind of the role of how powerful these microbes are. So they did this mice study and they had normal mice inside the cage and they had anxious mice on top of the cage. Okay. So the anxious mice were actually pooping and the normal mice were consuming their feces. And what the scientists found was that the normal mice actually started to become anxious.
Wow.
So, this is a major factor in anxiety. So, what you want to do, and let me also say this: if you've had stressful situations, a major stressful event, you've had a major car accident, a death, a divorce, that can act like a course of antibiotics on your gut.
Oh, probably multiple
Right.
courses. Yeah.
Right. Right. So, do not dismiss those stressful situations, especially long periods. Um, the way that you can really examine or get an idea if anxiety is related to the gut is just kind of observe when the anxiety started, right? So, was it after a long course or multiple rounds of antibiotics? Did it start after a long, a trip abroad? Was there a food poisoning incident? Or maybe you quote unquote had the stomach bug, but it was really a food poisoning. Was there a medical procedure or, as we mentioned, a stressful event? And then did your anxiety, start after those events? That could be a good indication that it's linked to the gut.
Mhm.
So it's just good to sort of observe those things. So, Kari, do you want to talk about a couple things, like maybe foods and supplements that we use to kind of soothe the gut and to really, help reinoculate the gut and get the gut back to homeostasis?
Sure. Yeah. So obviously, we've talked about things that irritate the gut, so you'd want to try and remove as much of those things as you can. I know that that might be an exhaustive list for some, or it might be one or two things that you could really work on. It just kind of depends on where you are. But um, food sensitivities are big when you think about healing the gut and giving it the space to heal. Vegetable oils, obviously, from your diet, seed oils are a big one as well. And then, pesticides are a big deal as well. So try to eat organic, try to eliminate those as much as possible. Um, and so adding in some probiotics or fermented foods can be really, really helpful to try and get the microbiome back to a good, healthy place. And sometimes that can be, again, we're giving you general tips, but sometimes you definitely need a course of like herbals or something like that. If it just depends on where you are, but these are good places to start. Bone broth is really healing to your gut lining. And then glutamine and butyrate are some things that you can look at as supplemental to add in that are pretty widely available in different products. Fiber also can be super helpful for digestion and repairing the gut. And one of my personal favorites, more rest, stress reduction. Nervous system plays a really, really big part in healing your gut and just really healing your body in general. And so, yes, rest at night, obviously we all know we need to sleep at night, but even more so rest, mental rest, physical rest during the day, even. I'm a huge fan of like breaking up that stress cycle so that you can rest better at night. So trying to take, 10 to 15 minutes midday can be really, really big in breaking up the amount of stress that you feel and that your body feels. And it just helps you also to realize what it feels like when you are more stressed so that you can, right? We're talking about, we're sharing signs and symptoms so that you can listen to your body more and give it what it needs. And so the more that we shift out of that super stressful state, we can understand and we can start to feel when we get stressed so that we can take a break or walk outside or, whatever it might be for us at the time.
Yeah,
Sure.
and if you can do it before lunch, so if you're at
Yeah.
work, Because remember, we digest properly in that parasympathetic state. So if we're constantly in fight or flight and we're eating at our desk and trying to work through lunch,
Yeah.
you're not digesting well. So if you can take that 10 minutes before lunch, you don't
Right.
have to go outside, put your feet in the grass. We've talked about heart math before. If not, you can Google that, get a video of that, so that you can flip that body into parasympathetic,
Mhm.
so that you can digest. And I just want to mention, if you're taking a stimulant, so if you're on like a Vyvanse or an Adderall, those are, of course, they're amphetamines, right, Kari? Amphetamines?
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, they are stimulants, and their job is to stimulate and will stimulate cortisol. And while I understand that for some of you they might be a must, they do affect your ability to, regulate your nervous system and digest. And that's, where, we can try to work with you to address some of those things.
Yeah.
The only other thing I wanted to mention, if you're introducing fermented foods or the prebiotics, the fibrous prebiotics, and your bloating increases or your
Yeah.
digestive system seems to be worse, that could be a sign of SIBO, so small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And so you do want to, that needs to be addressed first. SIBO, of
Yeah.
course, is precipitated by stress, which decreases hydrochloric acid in the stomach, and things like ibuprofen and a dysregulated microbiome. So there's certain things that you need to do. So if you tried things like glutamine, which we use glutamine all the time with enzymes, right? That seals up the
Yeah.
leaky gut, or butyrate, which should be produced in by your, if some of those simple things aren't working, that's something you should probably address. So we would highly suggest, you could take our quiz online. You can go to our website, cornerstoneintegrativehealing.com, and
Yeah.
learn more.
Yeah. It's our cornerstoneintegrativehealing.com/quiz. That'll take you directly to the quiz. But
Perfect.
if you feel like you're doing a lot of these things, or you just have more questions and you want to see if it will be a good fit to go deeper, you can schedule a free call as well. So those are just some options for you. We want to meet you where you are, but hopefully this information has been helpful, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.
If this episode has served you in any way, drop a review wherever you listen to podcasts. We'd love it if you'd share any aha moments or takeaways on Instagram and tag us at Cornerstone Integrative Healing.
And if you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please do so. We want to continue to walk this journey with you. Until next time, friends, know that we are praying for you.